Good morning, everybody. It's actually afternoon, isn't it? Because it's 1 o'clock. How are you all? I do hope you're having a great Tuesday, bearing in mind the massive lockdown is happening in the UK now. I hope you're all safe and well. What you need is a good book. So we're going to talk about a book today. Today I'm going to talk about characters. Obviously, I'm Sam Blake. I'm going live every day this week to talk to you about The Dark Room. My copy, which is there. Obviously, there's one behind me too. Jiggle it around. There's one behind me just on the shelf with my hair moonbeam next to it. The idea of this week is to give you a look inside how I developed the idea for the dark room. So yesterday we were talking about location. There's a bit more location stuff to talk about today too, and where I came up with the idea. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about plot and how I developed the plot. Thursday we're going to be doing a draw for this fantastic tile. I've got loads of props here, so it's like Blue Peter. So there's a tile, isn't it gorgeous? That's being created by Mel Chambers, especially for you guys. It is handmade, and you see the writing on his body. It says, "When she believed in herself, miracles happened." So that's from Mel Chambers at Alchemy Tiles, and it was her hairs, and I went into her ceramics studio in Morland Smith in Cornwall that started me thinking about Hare's Landing and the location for this particular story. And then we discovered there was more about hares that became very significant down the road as I was writing it. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about character. The character started, I was telling you yesterday that I was literally sitting on the beach in Helford. In fact, I found this postcard. Can you see that? That's a postcard of Helford Passage. Not very straight, is it? And the cottage we stay in is the one in the middle. And I was sitting literally right in front of it, just on that grassy bit there, when this idea came to me, this image of a woman jogging down the beach, dark-haired woman, green shorts. I don't know why she's wearing green shorts. I still haven't worked that out. With a German Shepherd dog lolloping along behind her. And that started me thinking, and I literally wanted to know what her story was. I knew she had a story, and I knew I needed to find out what it was. I think that's I suppose the joy of being a writer is that things strike you, these little light bulb moments happen, and ideas come to you. So I'm a very visual writer, and one of the things I do is that when I'm starting to develop characters, I like to find pictures of them. I think characters are really, really important in a book. And for me, understanding who they are and what their background is very, very important. I think it's the characters that resonate with you long after you put the book down. Yes, the plot's going to stay with you to a certain extent, but it's the characters and who they are, and I suppose their world, which stays with you. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to have everybody with me too. There's a whole lot of people joining in here. Great to see you. So characters are really, really important, and I like to understand everything about them, far more than you ever see in the book, because if I told you everything, you'd be bored with us. But it's the information about them sort of drips through as I'm talking about them, hopefully, or as they're talking to each other. So what I do is I create, so I'm leaning forward here, create a storyboard. Some of you have already seen this. This is a storyboard for the dark room. For every book I write, you can see all sorts of different people on that. Some of them you'll recognise because I tend to look for pictures of characters who resonate with me, who look like the people in my head. And that can mean that they're famous people or actresses, and I perhaps haven't realised that, but they're very similar to what they look like. So the girl who was jogging along the beach is a girl called Caroline Kelly, I realised. And let me show you a picture of the girl I thought she looked like. So to me, this is what Caroline Kelly looks like. In fact, she is an Australian actress called Gianna Patterson. But literally, I found her by doing a Google search. So what I do is I go onto Google and I look for 30-year-old women or 25-year-old women, dark hair, and see what comes up. And I keep looking through all the faces and through all the pages of people. It's a bit like an identity parade until I find somebody who really resonates with me. And this is what Caroline looked like for me. So then I'm able to create her story and the story around her. Caroline is a journalist, and she is based in New York now. She was brought up in Dublin, and she's the youngest of, there's 4 sisters altogether. She's 3 older sisters. And her mother had MS, and so she was the younger sister. She was the last one left looking after her in the family home until her mother died just before she got the results of her master's degree in journalism, which she was doing in DCU. So I have lots and lots of information about these people. Then Caroline went to New York and she got a job in a newspaper there. And the reason she ends up in Hare's Landing is because she is involved in a lawsuit in the paper. She's being sued for defamation. by this tech boss character, who's utterly despicable. But what's happened to her is that Greta, who is her editor, isn't supporting her. So she thinks that this defamation case is complete nonsense, and he's really just creating a smokescreen. But her editor doesn't support her, and that's a really, really big thing. And it sends out, she's really concerned because it sends out messages to other people within the media that maybe actually there's something going on behind the scenes. Now, as she discovers, as the story pans out, there is a reason why Greta isn't supporting her, but she has no idea at the time. And she's just really fed up. So it's snowing in New York, and we meet her literally coming out of her office, having had a confrontation with the editor. She gets home and she Googles places to stay in West Cork. West Cork was a place she used to go to as a child. It was where her holiday home was. And she just wants to get back there. She doesn't want to go and stay with her sisters or her friends because she doesn't want to have to explain everything. She's exhausted. She just needs some time and some space. And literally gets onto Google. Hare's Landing are this country house hotel. They've only been open a little while, since about September, and they've got great offers on in January. So she finds a house called the Boat House, which is like a serviced cottage in the grounds of Hare's Landing, and that's just perfect for her because it means that she doesn't have to talk to people over breakfast if there's other people staying there, but that she can get, fed and watered, and she can have some real quiet time, and that's what she needs. And so Caroline sets out for Hare's Landing, and we meet her in the cab where she's just got off the plane, and a driver from Hare's Landing has appeared to pick her up. And she's exhausted because she's been flying. She hasn't been sleeping properly. Obviously, she's been on the plane. And she arrives at this fantastic location, this beautiful boathouse, which has been converted into a cottage. And it's perfect, she thinks, until things begin to happen. But when she's there, she meets Rachel. So let's get rid of Caroline Kelly for 1 minute. And this will make you laugh. Now, this is what the girl who I felt was Rachel Lambert, who in fact is a newsreader for Channel 4. It's a name called Kathy Newman. Some of you probably recognise her. And when I was looking for a woman of the right sort of age, the right hair and everything, I think hair is very important for my characters. This is what I came up with. So this, for me, was Rachel Lambert. And she is from London. She's Irish too. I should see Caroline's Irish. Rachel's from Dublin as well. And she's living in London. And she's the one that lives on the houseboat. I'll give you a quick flash of the houseboat because I had a lot of fun investigating houseboats. Can you see that's the inside of the houseboat? And let's see if we can get the other picture up as well. And that is a houseboat in Rotherhithe. In fact, I went to Limehouse Marina, which is where she lives, to have a look at houseboats. But I had a lot of fun doing that. So let's get rid of the houseboats now. There we go. And we're back to Rachel. So Rachel is a film location scout. She works for a company called Red Fox Films, who are based very close to Limehouse in East London. And obviously this is all fictitious. I have to make all these things up. And her partner is a chap called Hunter. This will really make you laugh now. Who you might recognise from the X Factor. So this is a guy called Kevin who was on the X Factor, but to me he was just Hunter down to a T, hat and everything. And Hunter is a documentary director, coincidentally, with Channel 4. Well, we don't mention it's Channel 4, but that's where he's going when he is knocked off his bike. So he heads off to work one morning. Let's get rid of the pair of them so we've got a bit more space, and I'll be able to show you somebody else is very important. So he is on his way to work one morning, and he gets knocked off his bike. Rachel has gone back to her boat, gone back to the houseboat in Limehouse to collect something because she'd gone to work in the morning and she'd forgotten something, goes back and discovers the houseboat's been broken into. So she's desperately trying to get hold of Hunter and can't and doesn't know why. And then two policemen turn up in her office at Red Fox Films. She thinks they're coming to tell her that the scenes of crime guys are coming down to the houseboat. In fact, they're coming to tell her that Hunter's had this horrible accident on Limehouse roundabout. No, it's not called Limehouse, it's a different roundabout on the way. I've forgotten the name of the roundabout. And he is in hospital. And so she goes to see him. She's really having a very bad day. And between the jigs and the reels, we learn that Hunter is actually a documentary director, and he's making a documentary about homeless people and the stories about why they became homeless. And there's a particular guy that he's bonded with, who is a guy called Alfie Bowes, who is living homeless in London, and Hunter's just really connected with him, but he can't get to what the core of his story is. He's very close to it, but he can't quite get there. But he's very worried about when Hunter comes out of his comes back out of surgery and stuff. He's very worried about Alfie because he hasn't heard from him. He was due to meet him. And so he asks Rachel to go and see if she can find him. Rachel discovers that, in fact, Alfie has died in a fire. So all of these things are happening in Rachel's life, and Rachel realizes that actually she doesn't want to stay on the houseboat. Hunter's been knocked off his bike. She's worried. There's this thing happened with Alfie. It's just all not very good. And Hunter's concerned too. He wants her to go to Dublin, back to her mum, and to take this chap with him, who is very important in the story, who is a dog called Jasper, a German Shepherd. And she wants to go back to her mum, and she's going to come back to Dublin, but in fact her mum doesn't really like dogs, so she's worried about that element of things too. Let's get rid of them, and I'll be able to tell you about the rest of the people. And so basically she decides that she is going to see if she can find somewhere to stay, and she does her Google search and she discovers the Hare's Landing is on Google. They're doing great deals for January and they are dog friendly. So she sets out from London, and she gets the ferry across with Jasper to Hare's Landing, and that's where Caroline and Rachel meet. And they discover very quickly the Hare's Landing, as well as the things that they need to investigate themselves. They discover that Hare's Landing has secrets of its own. Rachel's very interested in what Alfie's connections could be with Hare's Landing. That's really how she found it. And she feels that he had some sort of connection with the place, but she can't find out what. And it was 30 years ago, and really she just feels that she might be onto a bit of a hiding to nothing. But they do discover that various people have disappeared over the years, and they have mysterious stories. And so the house itself has a lot to reveal too. Now, when I was coming up with the idea for the whole sort of plot and everything, I was actually sitting in that location here by the sea, about 100 yards from Frenchman's Creek, which is just over this side, just up the river a bit. And so to me, Frenchman's Creek and Daphne du Maurier, obviously a lot of people know that Rebecca is my favourite book of all time. Really resonated with me, and the sort of du Maurier influence. And so when the two girls arrive at Hare's Landing, they meet a lady called Mrs. Travers, who is not unlike Mrs. Danvers. And some of you will recognise the Rebecca references, hopefully, in the story. Hare's Landing is a lot smaller than Mandalay, but it's not dissimilar. It's right by the sea. So there's a lot happening when they get there to Hare's Landing. And they discover this story, that various things have happened to various people have disappeared. And the story begins to unfold, and strange things happen when they get to Hare's Landing. Doors slam, and they can hear music, and they can smell perfume, and there's a certain ghostly, otherworldly influence that makes its presence felt as the story unfolds. So that's a little bit about the two principal characters. The ironic thing for me is that the girl that came to me, who was Caroline, who's jogging along the beach with the dog. In fact, the dog isn't hers at all. The dog is Rachel's dog. And I'm thinking she's wearing shorts, and it's January when the book's set. So I think she perhaps goes back to Hare's Landing, and that's the moment that I saw or was captured in my imagination. And she goes back to meet Rachel, and they have a reunion in Hare's Landing, and that's why she's jogging down the street, down the beach, with Jasper, the dog. So there's lots in the story, lots to unfold. And I love telling you about the characters, but it's tricky to do it without the spoilers. That's always very hard, isn't it, with a thriller? So I go into lots of detail, find out lots of history on the people, and really get a feel for who they are. So they really live for me. And the idea of the book is very much, I think I mentioned this before, is that I'm trying to create a world, and I want to create a snapshot, a window on Caroline and Rachel's world, and I want them to feel real to you as readers. And when I'm creating the world, I'm creating also, obviously I've written the 3 Cat Connollys are up there behind me, and Keep Your Eyes on Me is just behind me here too, on the shelf. And it's a complete world. So there are references in each book and little Easter eggs for people who recognise them. And there is a guard in the sort of second half of the dark room called Malachi O'Brien, who we meet. And Caroline is quite interested in him, and he's quite interested in her. And she's probably the reason why she goes back to Hare's Landing. And he actually used to work with Cat Connolly in Dún Laoghaire. So there's some references there as well. So anyway, it's a world that we're building, and hopefully one that we'll be able to continue in other books. So that's a bit of an idea about the characters in the dark room. I'm just going to pop the covers into the stream, so you've got those as well to see. That is the book with a link to Eason's, and then coming up now, I can get rid of that one. there is a link in the comments coming up to my website where the audio and the Kindle and all the other options are there. So if you're in a different part of the world, I know there's copies that have gone to Australia. My editor Sarah's literally just emailed me to say that there are copies ordered in Australia and other parts of the world. In the if you're in with the forces in Germany, there's places there. It'll be there, and everywhere, UK, lots of places. There's linked on that page to bookshop.org, which I set up for anybody who wants to use independent bookshops rather than the other major online bookseller. So it would be great, and it'd be great to support local and support indie at the moment. Literally, it's a case of obviously we can't leave the house and we can't go out, so do use the bookshop's websites or use Click and Collect, and they'll be able to supply them to you. So thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's great to have everybody, all the names up there. I can see everybody, Noelle, and it's lovely to have you, Noelle. I think Noelle's in Edinburgh. Helen, Peter, Dolores, Patricia, Dave, loads of you. Thank you. And Luciana, thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully I will see you tomorrow to talk to you a little bit about the plot. Talk to you soon. Bye.